Have you ever noticed how things seem so much more valuable once they're out of reach? Think about it. When something is always available, we often overlook its true worth. But the moment it's gone, we suddenly realize how much it meant. It's a simple truth that can change the way you approach your own life and relationships. Sometimes your absence speaks louder than your presence. In a world that's constantly pulling us to be everywhere at once, to show up at every moment, T here is a powerful lesson in learning the value of stepping back. It's not just about taking a break, it's about strategically creating space, making room for others to miss you, and watching how your value rises in the process. It's almost like an unspoken rule of human psychology. We don't value what we can always have. We value what we fear losing. Think about the last time you took a step back from something or someone. It could have been a friend, a partner, or even your job. In that absence, things change. People begin to feel the weight of your absence. They start to realize, maybe for the first time, what they had all along. And that's when the shift happens. That's when your value begins to rise. But here is the thing. You don't need to be constantly present to be valuable. Too many people think that they need to be in the spotlight all the time, that their worth depends on how much they give, how available they are. But the reality is you don't have to chase attention. When you remove yourself from the equation for a while, the world gets a chance to miss you. And that's when your true value is realized. Let me ask you something. Have you ever stepped away from a situation and seen the change in how people treated you? Maybe they suddenly paid more attention to you. Or perhaps they started respecting your time and energy more. The truth is, your absence forces others to reflect, to appreciate what they've lost. It's like creating a void that can only be filled by respect, admiration, and even longing. As you continue watching this video, stick around to the end because I am going to reveal how you can apply this powerful principle in your own life. You'll learn why stepping back is often the best move you can make to elevate your value. Stay with me. By the end of this, you'll see how to start using your absence to create more respect, more opportunities, and ultimately a higher value that others can't ignore. Have you ever noticed how people only truly appreciate something when it's hard to get? It's simple human nature. What we can have at any time often gets taken for granted. But what we can't easily access, what feels a little out of reach, becomes valuable to us. This is where the psychology of scarcity comes into play, and it's a force more powerful than you might realize. Think about it. When something is in abundance, we don't stop to fully value it. Whether it's a resource, an opportunity, or even a person, the constant availability makes it seem less special. This is the principle that shapes so many aspects of our lives, from our careers to our relationships. Scarcity increases value. The less available something is, the more we long for it. And this isn't just a random thought, it's deeply rooted in our psychology. Take a moment to reflect on a time when you felt a sudden appreciation for something or someone who became distant or unavailable. Perhaps it was a friend you grew apart from, or maybe even a mentor who stopped giving you advice. You may have thought, I took them for granted, or I missed their presence. That is the magic of scarcity in action. When something or someone is absent, it triggers our desire, our longing. In the same way, when we make ourselves scarce, we activate that same response in others. Now, imagine applying this principle to your own life. The next time you remove yourself from a situation, a relationship, or even a job, you are not disappearing. You are creating space for others to realize what they truly value in you. They begin to miss you, not because of what you did, but because of who you are. They'll start to understand the gap your absence creates. And that gap is exactly what amplifies your worth. In relationships, whether personal or professional, making yourself less available can trigger a sense of desire in the other person. People will start to notice your absence, and subconsciously, they will begin to recognize your importance. The more time you give them to miss you, the more your value rises. You become something rare, something to be appreciated, not something they can simply take for granted. This is a powerful shift, and it works across every area of your life. In the workplace, you don't need to be at every meeting, answering every email. When you let others handle things in your absence, they begin to see how important your role truly is. The same goes for friendships. Sometimes taking a step back gives your relationships the space they need to grow. It makes people, but when you pull back, even for a short period, you create a space for people to notice what they're missing. Suddenly, you are not a constant in their lives anymore, and they start to realize your importance. They wonder why you are not there. And in that wondering, they begin to appreciate you more. That gap you create, the absences, exactly what triggers a shift in how others perceive you. This isn't about manipulation or playing games. It's about understanding the psychology behind desire. The less available you are, the more people begin to appreciate your presence. In fact, you are essentially teaching them how to value you without having to ask for it. The more you step back, the more respect you earn. The less you chase attention, the more it comes to you. When you make yourself scarce, you also remove the pressure to constantly prove your worth. You stop living for the approval of others. Instead, you allow others to come to you to seek you out, and in doing so, they reaffirm your value. This shift not only raises your value, but also shifts the power dynamic. Now, it's not about how much you can give. It's about how much you respect yourself and how much others begin to respect you in return. In professional settings, this can be particularly powerful. Think about how often we feel compelled to be constantly available, answering emails, attending every meeting, being on all the time. But by stepping back and allowing others to take responsibility or make decisions in your absence, you make them realize your indispensable role. You show them that you are not someone who can be taken for granted. This principle also works in personal relationships. Often we overextend ourselves to be there for others, thinking that this will earn their appreciation. But the truth is, by creating space, by letting them experience a little bit of your absence, you give them the chance to miss you, to long for your presence. And that longing only increases your value in their eyes. You stop being someone who is always around, and instead, you become someone they truly appreciate. So the next time you find yourself trying to prove your worth to someone, take a step back. Don't always show up. Don't always be there. Allow them to miss you, to realize what they've been taking for granted. In doing so, you are not just giving them a chance to appreciate you, you are raising your own value in their eyes. Now that we've explored how confidence, absence, and psychological principles can raise your value, let's bring everything together. It all leads to one powerful truth. Your value is not defined by your presence. The less you try to prove yourself, the more others will see your worth. This is the final piece of the puzzle. The moment you realize that you hold the power to control how others perceive you, and it's all rooted in your ability to step back and allow your absence to speak for itself. In a world that constantly tells us to do more, give more, and be more present, it's easy to fall into the trap of thinking that our value is determined by how much we're around, how much we show up. But this couldn't be further from the truth. Your value isn't about how much you can give to others, it's about what you allow others to experience when you are not there. Your absence creates the space for others to appreciate what you bring to the table. When you understand this principle, everything shifts. No longer do you feel the need to be everywhere, to be constantly available, to constantly prove your worth. Instead, you can trust that your value remains intact, perhaps even grows, when you create space for others to realize what you contribute. This applies to every area of your life. In relationships, whether romantic or platonic, you don't have to be the one reaching out all the time, doing all the emotional work, or carrying the load. When you allow a little distance, when you let others miss you, you stop being just a person who is there and start becoming a person whose presence is cherished. You allow the other person the opportunity to value you more, and in turn, the relationship becomes more meaningful. In your career, this principle works just as effectively. By choosing when to show up and when to step back, you not only avoid burnout, but you also signal to others that you have boundaries, that you understand the importance of your own time and energy. This self-respect elevates you in the eyes of your colleagues, bosses, or clients. When people see that you respect yourself enough to not be available all the time, they start to see you as someone they need, someone they can't take for granted. By allowing yourself to step back, to create moments of absence, you don't lose value, you gain it. People begin to realize just how much you bring to the table. They start to value you not because of how much you do, but because of how much you represent. You become a person of importance, of influence, not because you are constantly trying to prove yourself, but because you allow your presence to be recognized in the moments that truly matter. So, ask yourself, what would happen if you stopped trying so hard to be everywhere? What would happen if you took a step back, let others experience your absence, and allowed your value to rise? The truth is, you don't need to be constantly present to be valued. In fact, your absence can work in your favor, turning you into someone others can't afford to overlook. Your value is not defined by how much you give away or how much you show up. It's defined by how much others recognize what they've been missing when you are not there. Trust in the power of your absence. Trust in the strength of your confidence. Let them miss you and watch your value rise.